Hello. The animal I will be talking about today is ducks, specifically the mallard that is native to our home of Wisconsin and all of the continental United States. I want to focus on this animal because I have a history with ducks. When I was a teenager, I bought ducks kind of out of rebellion and raised them out of our backyard for a year before they went to live in a relative's farm. But my family really rose to the occasion, considering we live in an urban setting of St. Paul, Minnesota, and we built a pond out of our gutter drainage and got them a chicken coop and really integrated them into our lives. I really valued this experience because I gathered their eggs, put them to bed, and released them from their coop every morning, and it was a major feat of responsibility for me and a bonding experience with this animal I would have never experienced. I was vegetarian at the time and considering veganism, and this relationship with an animal in which I was harvesting their eggs was a solidifier that I think you can have that relationship in an agricultural setting. Although the ducks we raised were not mallards, they were Swedish blue and Swedish black, I wanted to learn more about the animal that I would be more likely of encountering. The mallard duck, genetically, is a combination of most domestic duck breeds. There are many species that are related to the mallard, like the Mexican duck that is considered a subset of mallard, and the Hawaiian duck that is considered its own species because of years of isolation, but very, very similar. The mallard is by far the most common duck in North America and the broad world, with them being also very common in freshwater habitats in Europe and Asia as well. One thing that would suggest ducks have sentience is their breeding behavior. They have a courting system that is seasonal between fall and winter. This long-term bonding in between the animals suggests a sense of emotional maturity. And then the female will raise their eggs post-hatch, so there is also that emotional attachment. I also can speak from my own experience as they have been effective communicators for me, being that you can tell by the tone and intensity of their quack if they're happy, excited, or scared. According to the journal Science, ducklings can distinguish things that are the same or different pretty early on. According to the Smithsonian Magazine, to explore how ducks think, researchers exposed newborn ducklings to a variety of objects, showing them pairs that were either the same or different in characteristics like shape or color. Later, when showed completely different objects, 3/4 of the ducklings got up and followed the pair that had the same relation they'd originally seen. For example, newborn mallards, who were first exposed to two spheres, the same, later chose to follow a pair of triangles, the same, rather than a cube and a cuboid, which were different. This suggests a higher level of thought we had assigned onto ducks, as this demonstrates a comprehension level really early on in their lives. In terms of duck representations, I have to talk about ducks generally and not specifically the mallard. I could not find a representation of the mallard, which left me pretty disappointed because it is by far the most common and most known duck. When searching for a representative, I found that all Donald duck, Daisy duck, and the duck from the Aflac commercials are all Pekin ducks. Ducks are largely represented by the media through characters in cartoons and mascots. Donald, Daisy, and Daffy Duck and their extended ducks from their franchises are all really personified and rarely act in line with a duck, which is pretty common for ducks in cartoons. We rarely see them engage with water. They do not eat the diet of a duck. They largely disregard natural duck anatomy, whereas the Aflac duck is an interesting example because it quacks Aflac instead of a natural quack, but it is bipedal. It uses the anatomy of the duck, and it references quacking, so it's much more rooted in reality. In all cases, ducks are used for humor. This is the way that they are most often represented. Even within the news, stories revolving around ducks are seemingly really positive or humanity-based, rarely seeing a story about a duck being violent or causing chaos. I believe we see ducks as humorous for the following few reasons, mostly compared to their representation of other birds. They're pretty easy to anthropomorphize because of their bipedal nature and their quack that sounds more like a voice than other bird noises. Their waddle kind of looks like a toddler walking or a human that is pretty small or just kind of learning. So there's kind of a humor in that. And their quack, when compared to a human, sounds pretty desperate because it's so just like, ah. So it's pretty easy to assign meaning because of that intensity behind it. Another reason they're funnier than other birds is that they're common. They're just by far the most common waterfowl in North America, which leads to relatability. Everyone has seen a duck. Most people have fed a duck. So if you talk about duck, there's going to be a personal experience or attachment there. They're also food. Ducks can be eaten. Duck meat is definitely not uncommon. And so jokes about duck being eaten or hunted are a thing. They're referenced in this media that I was talking about. Ducks are also, I think, the perfect size for comedy because if they were larger like a goose or a swan, I think they would be a little more threatening. I think they might cause a little bit more damage and chaos. We wouldn't find them as funny. And if they were any smaller, I think we'd think they were too cute and also not talk about them as much in this comedic sense. I think they're a great bird with the ability for really cool human connection. I'd love to see some mallard or indigenous American bird representation, considering we're really only seeing these really controlled breeds in the media that depicts ducks. Because they really hit the sweet spot of humor, I think could be exciting. And it's also a spot in duck media that's really lacking. Hey, Kat, why are ducks so funny? They're always quacking jokes.